Way forward time to talk to the experts, the people who know what's going on out there, because clearly we don't.
I'm telling you,
there's too much happening.
And appearing for the first time after being disconstructed, after
being destroyed.
It was a cartel.
Who goes up against Miguna?
This guy was drained like a swamp.
His swamp was drained?
His swamp was drained. And I'm telling you, I know he will never, ever face Miguna again in any live television.
We're talking about Gabriel Muthuma. Gabriel, welcome to Hot 96.
Thank you, folks.
Hold on. And he's not alone.
Yeah, he's not alone.
We got a fierce competitor. Michael Okwanda joins him here. So again, he's about to be destroyed.
If he doesn't know his law really well.
Michael, welcome to Hot 96. Good morning. Gentlemen, Gabriel, who goes up against Miguna?
Everybody. You see, the problem that people have had, and you've seen, everybody calls Miguna a bully. People come out and say, this guy is, he's going to crush you. It's a make-believe. You see, when you deal with facts, facts don't change, Jeff. And guess what? You can't hold on to facts and try to twist them to fit with your narrative. It can never happen. Facts are just facts.
So you're in denial. You're in denial.
No.
He didn't destroy you.
Where? He just got a little bit angry because I used his book to tell him, You see, I can delete my tweet, Jeff. This guy can never delete his books. All those craziness, the crazy things he talked about, Ryla, man. He'll be with those things until he leaves this world.
But now he's back in NASA or NRM.
Big mistake. He's the general, actually, but big mistake.
Big mistake? Do you think so, Mr. Michael?
Yeah, Michael, what do you think?
Miguna is a 5-star general. Of
5-star?
A general without an army, man.
And when Honorable Matangi questioned whether general was supposed to be on that podium, he said, well, it happens in the U.S. as well. Generals, 5 stars are allowed to speak to the public. And so he was rightfully speaking to the public. But the truth of the matter is, I think Miguna has a fanatic following that you need to be very, very careful about. Remember that Miguna's house was actually burned in Nyando at one point.
His effigy also, not only his house. You remember his effigy?
Everything.
Was actually banned. Yes. If anything, he was not allowed to come to Kisumu. In fact, it would be just like a wild goat around. But just recently, when Honorable Ryla went to change, figuratively went to change his SIM card, to Airtel, Miguna soon, followed him suit, and there was still a huge crowd. And I was in town on that day. Man, you could see how people were happy with Miguna. And I said, man, Kenya. You forget too fast.
I'm telling you, Michael, you are so right.
Everybody was so excited that it was there. You wouldn't get that accolade just a few days ago.
Thank you.
And the funny thing, Jeff, the guy speaks well. And in fact, so many people are talking about voting him as a governor for Nairobi. But look at what he amounted. I mean, he only amassed about 5,000 votes, if I'm not wrong.
No, it was about 10,000.
Was it about 10,000?
10,000.
What does that tell you? I mean, we can like you when you're speaking on the mic. When
but remember,
on the
he
show.
actually withdrew in the middle as well.
Who withdrew where?
Yeah, Miguna.
No. I think he ran full. He went full.
His running mates withdrew.
His running mates
two of
withdrew.
them.
Exactly. That just tells you. So people can actually like you behind the microphone. Right. I don't think you don't connect with them. So I think he has a lot of work to do. But I think he's a great guy when it comes to policy, when it comes to governance. It's something I think we should give a shot.
So checks and balances. He's good for checks and balances.
He's a good guy, and the way he hates corruption. If we go by that narrative, so I'm like, one of these fine days, I think in one of these election cycles, we have to give this guy a chance.
Okay, enough of Miguna. Let's move on.
Yes. Before he starts tweeting.
Yeah, he'll tweet right now. They can't stop talking about me.
They don't have topics. If I'm not there,
Jeff and Jalas, you're demagogues. You are a demagogue.
I think the reason why people don't like Miguna is he speaks it as it is.
And very few Kenyans have that kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, but Michael, which way forward?
Yeah.
NRM, resisting. Where are we?
Boycotting.
Boycotting. Where are we?
To be honest with you, Jalash, is the country is at a crossroad. In fact, I am so pleased with what Jubilee is going through now. I think if you've been watching the airwaves more recently, there's been a little bit of a tone down in rhetoric and personal attack. And I think that's a good thing for this country. When we're talking about NRM, and then we're talking about the boycott, and then we're also talking about what is now the big thing in the House, which is the Supreme Court, and everybody's looking at the Supreme Court and wondering what's going to happen. Is this going to be the same thing that happened on August the 8th? And if it's going to be the same, what's going to happen in the next 90 days? You know, these are fundamental questions that some of them we have no answers for. And therefore, the country is at a crossroad of boycott that is literally hurting the small man out there. Let me tell you, you go to some hotels, and you know, Muthuma and I have had an opportunity to hang out sometimes in the mornings, and you go to some places where you have buffet, and suddenly you don't even find guests in some of these hotels. My friends run several hotels, and when you go into those places, the other day somebody was telling me I'm at Itacon, and there are only 6 guests that are booked in this place. That's how bad it is, that people are canceling their flights from overseas, and this country really depend on the export and the import. In fact, that's our biggest income in this country. About 80% comes from our import from the port. And then you have the foreign exchange that actually is stabilized by the tourists in this country. And it's also stabilized by the investors that are also have developed an attitude of let's wait and see. And you know, when they're waiting and seeing, they're not doing business. Money is not in circulation. The government itself has not released money since election. You remember, since the August 8th. That means the counties are suffering. What they're releasing is basically salaries. No development money, no CDF, nothing is going on in this country. Jalash, we are at a place that we need to stop and reconstruct what we say on airwaves, what we say on TV, what we say against one another in terms of politics. We need to stop for a moment and say, is this our country? And why are we going after each other's throat? If we don't do that, we are headed for a serious problem.
And yet, Michael, and yet, Gabriel, the rhetoric is still rising.
I'm telling you.
People are going helter-skelter towards the edge of that cliff.
I'm telling you.
It's like we want to find out what's beyond that cliff. What's down there?
Jeff, you know, we've not understood. And I'm liking the fact that, you know, Mike has alluded to some of the few things that I think are ailing this country. One of them being the fact that we do not know where to stop. And you've put it very clearly, Jeff. You know, we're moving right down to this cliff. And then when we get there, we start asking, how did we get here? Any politician, I mean, you've lived in the States. You saw how America builds. And this is a first world country. And Mike has also does that as well. Businesses, they build or they run politics. Here it's the other way around. You know, politics are running businesses. We are talking about boycotting business. We are talking about messing up enterprises. And when you look at a country like Kenya, where we are still trying to move and actually make ourselves become an economic powerhouse in East and Central Africa, which we are, we are now deconstructing. We are spoiling it. We are messing it up, fully well knowing, you know, the good understanding, Jeff, is that the economic of a nation is high universal appeal. For us to be able to appeal to investors outside there, we must have one thing which is very primary, and that is the prevalence of peace. If we fail to do that, I mean, look at us. What are we taking outside there? Probably tea, if you look at it, coffee, which has taken a beating. We need people coming in, much like the tourists. I mean, this is, if you look at the countries that are surrounding us today, Tanzania has started opening up. We are now competing with Tanzania for tourists, and they are getting it right.
And Ethiopia for flowers.
There you go.
Right? Flowers.
There you go. South Africa, they've actually taken
While
quite
on
a
the
huge
flower
market.
bit of it, we were supplying 1 in every 3 flowers in Europe.
Correct. Now, look at another place like Dubai. Most of the Kenyans that you know, people are just getting, you know, all their holidays right now. It's no longer Mombasa as usual. I mean, that's where you used to go for Christmas. It was a journey there. I've had people, and Mike, you know, we have had the first-hand information. But it's already heading to December, like you put it. Most hotels are not booked at the coast.
Which is going to be painful.
Did you
Because it trickles down, right? It's
look at the
domino.
massive layoffs that will happen in February and March. We may actually not be able to recoup. And this is a problem. It's politicians who are setting the narrative. If we can tone down the rhetoric, Jeff, and I'm started seeing politicians from one side, he mentioned Jubilee, they've really toned down. It's no longer a fist fight anymore on the airwaves. It's no longer a fist fight on TV. And I think this is what is expected. Let people start healing. We have a constitution that we need, to guard. We have laws that we need to guard. And if we are to sit down as a Kenyan, as a nation, as Kenyans, and say, these are the issues that are ailing us, I think we need to prioritize skills and education. And like somebody put it very well, if those two are not emphasized, people will find themselves in the wrong.
And yet at the same time, Michael, NASA leader Raila Odinga said on Reuters television yesterday that he still insists on elections in 90 days and an interim government in between. And also
He actually now pushed it, Jeff, to 6 months.
the interim government.
Yeah, to be there in six months so that we can do all these.
And yet the People's Assembly is still being constituted, if you will. I mean,
So we are still on this back and forth.
Yeah,
one
we're
more time.
still in the quagmire, as you call it, Jalas.
Yes.
Jeff and Jalash, this is what I've said in other, stations, and I still want to believe that it's the best way for this country to move forward. I want to say this. Let me give you an example of what has just happened in Mombasa. Who did we see in Mombasa when these people were talking about secession? We saw the envoys and the European Union going to Mombasa and meeting the members, the political leaders in Mombasa, saying, look, can we hear you guys out? This is what is bedeviling this country, Jeff. We have a situation where people talk about issues, but as a government, we do not want to sit down with them and say, look, guys, how can we meet in the middle? What is it that is happening that perhaps we could also help with? If people start talking about secession, my view will be, oh man, let's have some people that can understand the problems and the predicaments of these people. If the opposition is starting to talk about boycott, that boycott is not just going to hurt Jalash or Jeff or Muthuma, it's going to hurt everybody, including some of these people in the government that are doing business, that their business will be going down. They may be too rich and not feel it that much. But man, the people they've employed are gonna feel it. Yeah. And if they feel it, they will feel it as well. And so the question is, why can't you reach out to these men and women that many a times, I say this, Uhuru and Raila are not strangers. They've worked in the same office. In fact, President Uhuru was in Raila's office as his deputy prime minister at one point. Why can't they just say, look, guys, it's not just about us meeting in church. It might have been a show by just shaking hands, but that's not it. Why can't we say, let's meet with these guys and sit down? Let me tell you, in weakness there is strength, especially when you're in a position like that of Uhuru. I want a situation where people say, look, come here, let's talk about this thing. How is the best way to move forward? But this idea of, I am in a position and, if somebody needs me, then perhaps they need to come to me. Perhaps this is what is really widening this gap. I want to see a situation where Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, the Right Honorable Prime Minister, and President Uhuru will sit down, devoid of all this bickering, devoid of all this, what we call their foot soldiers, who say every manner of things that, in fact, if left unchecked, will widen the gap even further. And when they do that, who is hurting most? It is you and I, Jeff.
Yeah, the common Mwananchi and Gabriel, the boycotts don't help.
No.
If you're going to boycott Safaricom, that's a trickle effect all the way down to Mama Mboga.
I'm telling you. And it actually bothered me to hear somebody that I respect a lot, Badi, saying that, when he was told, it will affect people will lose their jobs. And, he talked about something which I can equate with where you just say, asira. It doesn't matter. That's the price you pay. You see, we don't have that luxury, Jeff. You're talking about a Mama Mboga or somebody who opened an M-Pesa kiosk, spent about maybe 50,000. This is what they are running. This is how they get their daily meal. This is how they are able to educate their children. And you're saying, mess that up, we'll find another way when we are out there. This is not an economic strengthening fora. What you're saying is, let us destroy this and we get power first, and then we come and look at that situation. It is actually doing the wrong things, thinking you're doing the right thing. Yeah. And somebody put it very clearly. He said, when you mess up an environment, the same mind that messed up that environment cannot be the same mind that comes to build. So, Jeff, there's a question you asked, and I also had that interview with Honorable Raila and Reuters. And let me tell you, it's a little bit discouraging. I never thought he would say that, but probably that's what he thinks would help. The problem with that is we are going outside the Constitution. And when we promulgated this Constitution, we said this was the best time to start talking about maximum reforms of our electoral process. I remember the people that I was talking to at that time, I said, I mean, Raila has been able to marshal up serious support to have this Constitution actually go through. He would have now gotten a very good chance to talk about electoral reforms. 60 days won't help, Jeff. Not 60 days, 6 months. It won't help. Even 2 years, I'm telling you, it won't help. There's a reason as to why. Johansen Kriegler said, before you go to an election, make sure all systems are go 24 months. No changing nothing. There was a reason as to that. Because you're talking about somebody who has seen almost everything you can ever imagine. This is an old retired judge in South Africa, the places where things used to happen. He's giving us advice and telling you, you guys, this is how you need to work on this. Jeff, we have procrastinated about our electoral reforms since 2008. And we are saying now we need 6 months and an interim government to sort this out. You know what? We are going to try getting a constitutional problem using a political process. It will not work. As by the way, it is the main reason why we are here, because we ended up with a political solution of removing the Hassan-led commission.
And I was going to add, you know, the Hassan-led commission was swept away. They brought this one, new commissioners.
Exactly.
Now they want these new commissioners swept away and others brought in. Michael, does that make sense every time it's a start, stop, start, stop?
Jeff, the problem that this country is facing is the suspicion that the Electoral Commission, whether independent or non-independent, has never served the people of this country the way it is supposed to. We've had issues and cases in every cycles of 5 years. And you know, as much as we might say that the led Isaac Hassan Commission was hounded out of the office, we brought new people. Remember that the secretariat remained the same, other than Chiloba, that actually was a new CEO. Every returning officer remained the same people unless they died or something happened. And so these are the implementers of the electoral process in this country. Jeff, I was in a place, in a tallying center that I do not want to mention, in this last general election, and that's the 8th of August. And I had a situation where a returning officer, of course, you know, after tabulating the 34A, it comes into 34B. And in this case, it was 37A that turns into 37B. And let me tell you, they use Excel, and so you know, the returning officer will punch in every 34A into 34B, and it's Excel. That means once you get the formula, you put the numbers and it gives you the total. The total down there, as we were now summing everything up, we realized that the total that was actually tabulated was about 15,000 votes that were in it. However, the total was changed to 19,000. And so we asked this guy, how did this come about? The guy looked at us as if he did not understand our language. And we used another language again that was favorable to him. And how did this turn out? And you know, the county returning officer said, look, this is a mistake. We can't solve it here. You've got to go to court. Well, you can see that returning officer literally put 4,000 boom into that 34A to add into another candidate. No, if this type of people will not be jailed as an example for our clear process of electioneering in this country, so that we know that you'll not be protected by IBC, ensuring that you have the top lawyer in town, that they're paying several millions, that they will say a wrong is wrong. And we must have to set examples in this country so that election process is not generated by people who work in IBC, and we will be as transparent as possible that we can be evaluated and we can give evidence. When you have a situation like just the immediate one, somebody tells, oh, we can't open the portal. Well, what are you trying to tell the people that invested billions into this electioneering process? At least you need to say, here is the portal. If there is a mistake, please sue us for it and we will own up. Than saying, well, we are not going to open it. Yet they paid you, yet they made sure that they presented themselves to be elected. Listen, because of failure and sham election in this country, every 5 years we are where we are today. In fact, that is what is generating the discussion of the secession. That's what generating the boycott. That is what generating all these other things. And you know, I will tell you, when you have a player, for example, who says, oh, these are the reducible minimum, and actually it is not against the law, the best you can do is say, how well can we implement it? Some might be practically impossible to do, but how about meeting these people in the middle? We are where we are because people do things in this country, they don't get accounted for them, and they don't get jailed, they don't get charged, because they know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and therefore it is practically impossible to implement. If we could have a clear electoral process, and what I say, these guys have also known that after every 5 years anyway they will go. So why do they want to do things whichever way in a bad manner that taints their image?
Yeah.
Do you want to believe that anytime you work in IBC that you can never work anywhere else again because your image is... People must first of all look at what is my life after this.
Michael, Gabriel, I think Michael nailed it when he says send these people to jail, because for too long impunity has reigned.
Totally.
Impunity.
Totally.
You get away with stuff.
Totally. And you saw in Moranga, that's a very good case.
With Alice Wahome?
Yeah. And all she was saying is this, you know, going by what we saw, this guy just decided, you know what, I'm giving 3 or 400?
400.
To Professor.
So and so. Mm-hmm.
And you look at this. I mean, you don't have to be stupid. I mean, it's
not
so
rocket.
elementary to say there's no way this guy can get this. And all I'm asking is for you to write a remark. I'm not even asking you to change. And that's the bungling of an election. This gentleman, all he could have done is, by the way, this is an honest mistake. And everybody will understand it's an honest mistake. And that's why I was saying, if NASA and Jubilee had agreed, and mainly NASA, to come to Parliament, this is where you have a Hansard. This is where you have a structured way of looking into the irreducible minimums and the law, the amendment law that was going to fortify this process. We are looking at fortifying an electoral process where we say we are both players. Let us set rules on how we shall move forward. And I think, Jeff, if people were to come and reason together, don't look at this side as having majority or this side as having minority. Let us say we need to set up the ground rules. What do we need to do to somebody who bungles an election? How many years does this man need to serve? Let us criminalize it to such an extent that before you write craziness, because really you're counting, Jeff, this is so elementary. 1, 2, 3. In fact, after people have voted, get class 4 kids. Bring them around. They'll have fun doing it. They'll have fun doing it. Jalas. They'll have fun doing it. Because it will be Uhuru, Raila, Uhuru, Raila, Uhuru, Raila, Ekot, Uhuru, Raila, Uhuru, Raila. Professor Uni, Professor Mgani, Mbili, Uhuru, they'll have fun doing it. It's a very easy process.
Yes. And yet we complicated
ourselves.
Imagine.
Just the other day, it was the UK. They had their elections.
Germany.
And there was a marathon.
A marathon at the same time.
In the morning.
And how many people voted?
60 million people.
And nobody, marathon went on. 60 million people voted. It was counted
Manually.
And within 2 days.
No. The next morning.
The next morning, everybody, 60 million had been counted.
Let me tell you, we look for very sophisticated people. Get class 4 kids.
The job.
Get class 4 kids, and it will be fun for them. Don't even pay them. Give them sodas and scones.
So, Michael, the bottom line is, why do we cut off our collective noses to spite our faces? Why do we do that? We've got the best constitution in the world, apparently.
Very progressive.
That's what a lot of people praise us for. And yet we keep doing this, shooting ourselves in the foot,
Before you
cutting
answer,
our noses off.
what did you say? We cut what?
Cut off your nose to spite your face. That you've heard the expression.
Hey, Jeff. Sometimes when we have guests, you always want to.
You're forgetting that's your face.
Imagine cutting off your nose.
Yes.
To spite
Or
your
face.
Yes.
This is a technical answer to Jeff's technical question. but one thing I've got to tell you is this. I think we're running ahead of time. We are so smart as a country. We are well educated. In fact, most of our legislators and most of our, executives are, either Harvard graduates or, studied in UK and Germany.
When I hear somebody talk about Harvard,
Yeah.
Kenneth went to Harvard
That's
with
right.
Obama.
That's right.
Yeah.
What changed? What changed?
Yeah, but hold on.
It was the Mbas.
Remember the past.
Numbers.
I mean, you are in the same academy, the same school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This guy has built an economy worth trillions.
Correct.
You, my friend,
And you're breathing the same air.
my goodness,
Then you come back to
you
Kenya.
graduated. Are you telling me once you get out of the plane at Jomo Kenyatta, your mind just holds thinking,
It goes local.
I mean, we have very brilliant
Yeah.
people.
Michael, you nailed it. You're right.
Ivy League
Ivy
educated.
League, smart.
In our parliament. But we still cannot solve issues.
It's tribal
Do you know
break
why?
them
cocoons.
down.
Cocoons.
You know why that happens?
Go on.
And I'm happy. Muthuma and I were down there and just looking at our life abroad and saying, man, what is happening with these people when they come back? And because we have so many smart people, they come into this country and write the best laws. And man, they have the language, they have the ability to write. When you hear them speak, it is beautiful to the international community and it is way above our concept here locally, and we want to implement it. And then suddenly you realize that the guy who wants to implement it is called a police force, and then he transitioned his name to a police service the other day. But really, they don't know the difference between the police force and the police service, because they still come with the real force against people. And then you realize that the setup is an African political hierarchy, a political of either a mix of capitalism, but not just capitalism, greed in it, and not just greed in it, real theft, where people carry money in gunny bags and walk home as if they're carrying sacks of tomatoes on their back, in Komba or somewhere, and they just walk home, and tomorrow they catwalk to a place and they say, oh, this is EACC, we've just come here to make a statement. We actually didn't steal, but we just carried the money. And then these guys, once they carry the money, if we don't find them in jail, they are still out there. Man, they're enjoying the loot, while Jeff and Jelash have to come here at 6 o'clock to actually earn a living. And so you're wondering, but what is the difference between us and some of these people? Until we realize that laws that are made in this country are supposed to be implemented, are supposed to be oversighted by some people who sit in some house called the National Assembly, that they're supposed to make rules that are easily interpreted, the rules that are easily understood to the people, are not complicated, that is put into the archives and waits for one day somebody to say, oh, in this country, let me tell you, there is every rule for everything. In fact, these guys, if they want to get anybody in this country, we have sufficient laws. The problem is, if you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, the rules do not apply to you. As long as we continue to observe these things and say it is okay for it to happen, because we seem to be having, this thing called tribalism. We are a tribalistic nation, and we do not get to the root of it. We are a tribalistic nation because the other people think that they are not sharing the same cake that the other people seem to be sharing for long. And so when you say we are tribalistic, it is simply because there is lack of equitable distribution of resources. And there are people who are hurting somewhere. The nomads, for example, they enjoy in their cattle. When you say, oh, this is, now called a territory that you can not come in, and the cows are dying in the neighboring, land that has no grass, and you tell this guy, oh, you can't come here, even though the grass is so much, but you can't come here. And they're just coming for grass, and the next day they leave. Look, if we do not reconstruct ourselves and understand ourselves, not from the Western perspective, but a Kenyan perspective, and say, what is our problem and how can we talk to our neighbors? How can we generate a discussion without waiting until when it escalates to a point where the country is almost coming to burn?
Yeah.
When you hear politicians, that we were saying with this guy, when you hear them come on TV, man, you will think if they meet their opponent, they will kill them alive. And now you're realizing that every problem that Parliament has had, and I will say this openly, they have had it with the government and the opposition. Now that the opposition is saying we are not playing ball, you can see that there is literally nothing going on in Parliament. Right. That means these elected leaders, whether it is in the opposition or the government, have been in bed literally at one point to either advance this country to another level or to frustrate this country. Because if they say no, even if there are two people, their people will stand with them.
Absolutely.
Wow. And you know, Jeff,
go on.
Mike actually alluded to something else where, and this is what I was telling you, where skill and efficiency are not emphasized, we will always be in riot.
As in meritocracy.
Exactly. We have not understood what devolution is. The minute we do that, I had somebody actually make a very good case in Kilifi. And what the guy was saying is this: before we talk about secession, we need first of all to understand what have you done with the money that you get from the national government.
Yeah, you know, sorry to cut you off, but remember we were looking at a school in Kakamega,
yes,
where they were sitting for the KCP.
Exactly.
Did you see those pictures?
Exactly.
Did you see that classroom?
Look at it. It's mud.
And they've been given 10 billion a year for 5 years.
That is, you see, we are looking, and I said, we need to set our sights at where it matters. We are looking at the national government. Well, you're not questioning your governor, your MCA. These are even wards right now. They have a budget. You are talking about a nation that is talking about doing great things, while our schools and our children are still studying in
Mud thatched.
I am telling you, it is a disgrace.
And they
it's
want
a
to compete
disgrace.
somebody in Nairobi.
Thank you.
And by the way,
I was just telling him.
and by the way, these people have billions
Sitting there.
worth of shillings. And then you tell me, hang on a minute, we are excluded. It is a problem. People are not actually driving the skill.
Is it because they don't get it? They don't get devolution
just don't get it.
yet?
You see,
No, they don't
it's-
get it. Just give me a minute.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't get it. It's that we've imported the corruption from the central government.
We brought
some
it.
of these guys were working. Remember, some of these governors
Exactly.
have been very senior government officers.
Exactly.
And so they've imported that to the local, counties.
So
Corruption has
we've
been
devolved
Correct.
corruption.
can I tell you something?
Our
Somebody-
namesake driving his V8 into a school like what
The one we saw in Kakamega.
Exactly.
Can you imagine?
Exactly.
Do you
So-
have
and
even
that-
the conscience?
And that's what I'm telling you. We've put our sights on a very different target. All we need to do, like what somebody was saying, is that before we talk about secession, tell us, Governor Kingi, what have you done with the 15 billion that you receive every year? You're saying we've been excluded. No. You have excluded us, you as a governor, from enjoying this. There are no schools built. Roads are done by the national government. You are telling us we don't have 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yet, you have never brought us into a round table to tell us this is how I've used your money. So, if we were to break away, how will it be different? You will destroy us totally. So, we still have an electorate that is still not informed. It is our work, Jeff, and I think this is where the likes who went to the Ivy League schools, the people who think that they've gotten ideas from abroad, the people who talk about accountability, the professionals who come in and say this is how we need to talk and do things in matters of health, in construction, in educating our people. This is where now they need to come in, and their presence should be felt, because this is where you tell people we are not there yet. This is the direction, and I believe that's what leadership is all about.
And yet there are some counties that are doing quite well when it comes to devolution.
And you know, in fact, Jeff, if we understood, that's why I keep saying, if we understood devolution, you know what it meant for me, and if I'm a governor and you're a governor, we compete with ideas. What can I get? And I'm liking what Anyang and the governor from Kericho are doing. These people are starting to, they are starting to show us that, hang on a minute, it's not about the national government anymore. It's about us. We are neighbors. What can I bring from my county? What can you bring from your county? How can we synergize counties? That somebody, a governor from Nyamira, will actually have an economic plan with another county in Central Province.
Yeah.
What do we bring? How do we ensure even professionals are able to share ideas? Why you plant this thing? How does it grow? How do we... That is how devolution is supposed to work. But now, everybody has said, you know what? This money only needs to come to me, and then I direct you guys to the national government. You're still excluded. Jeff, if we play the ball the way devolution is supposed to work, I can guarantee you, and probably I'm repeating this here, 20 years from now, you will not care who the president is.
I was about to allude to that, and I'm glad you brought that up.
You
because
will not care.
Some people have said, look, we need to go the Lee Kuan Yew Singapore way and have a benevolent dictator, because people down there don't listen. Nobody's listening.
Right.
Nobody cares.
Right.
Michael, do we need that benevolent dictator, that Kagame type character, or are we going the Michael way, Gabriel way? 20 years from now, we will give a
Yes,
Two
that one. Yeah.
Two hoots.
Give a damn.
who's in the big White House?
We do not need
Because the
to
governors
recommend-
would have done a very good job.
Exactly.
There'll be little
And,
presidents.
there will
Yeah.
be little presidents, and
Yeah.
who you'll be wondering is who is the next person who will take charge of the economy
Who's
of my place.
Exactly, Jalas.
Who is my MCA?
right.
Will it be able to take care of the village where I am?
My
Will
road.
it- my roads.
Yes.
That's it.
And what this other guy has done, will the person coming in be able to also continue the legacy?
That is it. That
where
is it.
50 billion is sent to your county for 5 years.
5
You
years.
have no idea what that money has done.
Jeff,
Go on,
we
Michael.
will not get there.
We won't.
That is the wildest dream of my brother here, and I commend him for a good thinking in a very straight manner. But I say it this way.
Yes.
I say it this way.
Yes.
The reason why, Gabriel Muthuma, this might be very, very difficult to achieve in the next 20 years is because we are already creating multi-millionaires cartels in your counties. You're creating a governor with his chief officers that are earning millions and stashing this money away, and already now starting to dictate who becomes the MCA in that ward, who becomes the MP, and who becomes the senator. And maybe in the next 20 years, if left unchecked, we will have cartels that if you do not subscribe to this cartel, you'll amount to nothing politically. The only way, however, on how we can deconstruct this is to ensure that if a governor steals the money, get him and let him go to jail. We are not seeing that. In fact, I was hoping that this will start sooner than later, that we'll have some governors that did even refuse to appear before the Senate to hold them accountable for the loss of funds. We've had of literally a wheelbarrow being bought at 100,000. And that gentleman today, let me tell you, is one of the most powerful speakers of this country, you know, and yet a wheelbarrow was 100,000. Some people are going to jail.
And we let him go.
And we let him go. He's now a big guy. In fact, if anything, you saw what happened to Cholet the other day. His cases were dropped, you know, and then you're wondering, on what basis? Now she's a woman rep. You need to respect her. She's a mweshimiwa. When you do not hold people accountable for the wrongs they have done in this country, we are still going to suffer. In fact, the hope that we will never care about who becomes the president is an illusion, simply because once you create these cartels, it will be something that is happening in Mexico, in Salvador. It will be what we are seeing in some of the what we call South American countries, because the powerful people has it all and dictates who become the leader. Unfortunately, EACC has never done this country a better job, and perhaps even the DCI need to say, look, I really don't care who you are. This is wrong and it is against the law, and you have to be accountable for it. When that happens, people will fear institution. People will fear violating the laws and the constitution of this country. But as long as we can sugarcoat it and call it, it was just a mere corruption, and we will need the DPP to enable you to be arrested in this case and to order. Why do DPP has to arrest somebody if you're already caught red-handed? Why do ESCC? Oh, if you've stolen a lot of money, then that's ESCC. But if you've stolen a chicken, then a police can arrest you and you can have 60 years in jail because you carried a panga, and so you robbery with violence. You see the discrepancies in our laws. Unless we come to a realization that a sin is a sin and we shouldn't condone it. If it is big, if it's small, it's a sin. And for us to get out of it, these people, some of them must pay for their sins.
And they have
and
to go
if
to
that
jail.
happens,
And they have to go to
then
jail.
the country will change. Otherwise, let me tell you one thing. I am fearing for our counties, because what we are creating in our countries might never be constructed for a very, very long time. And we will not see development.
Jeff, very quickly, I think when we talk about accountability, as much as we have institutions that are geared or primarily are responsible to ensure that these people pay hefty, I also still think we have a social problem where we know these people are corrupt and we still come up and vote them in office. So the problem actually starts with Wanjiko. It may end up with the top echelons who are responsible or who are given the office mandate to ensure that these people actually rot in prison, if you may. But Wanjiko has an issue with going around and getting the same people who've actually been found culpable, so to speak, in corruption dealings and still vote them in. Somebody was giving me an example and he said, you know what, you need to look at, it was just, I know he was making, he was just bringing it out. And he said, we have a problem when it comes to voting people in. And I said, what do you mean? I said, you see this guy? During the time the police were somewhere in Muthaiga. I said, you see this guy? This guy would run for president. He'll be elected. I'm like, no. I said, that is how we think.
Yeah.
We have not gotten out the framework of somebody with money. But one thing I'm liking is that Wanjiko is starting to get things right. She may not be there yet, but she's starting to get things right. You've seen some guy in Imenti, didn't even have a car, still a student, but people voted him in. They found something in him. You saw them, our good friend, the mechanic, the guy in Kahawa, Wendani. Somebody from a very different place altogether, from Nyanza, voted in Central. Wanjiko is starting to get things right. We may not be there yet, but what I'm praying is, when we get it right, that the minute your name comes up in a list of corrupt individuals, that becomes the end of you.
All right, gentlemen. Michael, Gabriel, obviously you've become very idealistic in the last few weeks. I don't know why. I think Miguna humbled you. But it's okay.
By the way, did you listen to that debate? Jeff, why don't you do us a favor?
I saw you being deconstructed.
Give me one sentence on here. Say it. One sentence.
That Miguna said?
This guy.
One.
There were too much.
No. Say one. Say one. And then we had a very nice conversation. It was factual based. The only problem is I didn't want people jumping and coming saying things that they cannot authenticate. It is wrong. It's like me, Jeff, saying, Jeff has stolen from me. Jalas is asking, what has he stolen from you? Now Jeff is a thief. What has he done? Jeff is just a thief.
Jeff should have you and Miguna on the bench.
Which date?
As long as it doesn't become, like Michael was saying, not a noise fest, not a shouting match.
That's what I would like.
Right? Not a shouting
Give us
match.
a date. Give us a date.
Then I don't think Jeff is also planning to host Miguna anytime.
Why?
The last time he hosted him, he lost his job.
And I can only work in so many places.
I'm telling you. Bring him over. We'll have a very sober discussion.
Gentlemen, I want some closing thoughts. And just keep this in mind. If we could adapt to the whole plastic banning concept,
right?
We all fell in line as Kenyans. They said Monday morning, plastics are banned.
Yes.
Or you're going to jail. That's the other thing. You're going to jail. If we could have adopted and fallen in line, as your final thoughts, gentlemen, what's the best way forward? And Michael.
Sorry. Yeah, you go first.
The best way forward for this country is to have free, fair, transparent and accountable election. Something that you can peruse through and say it was done well. Raila will not have a place to run to but to say, look, I have no choice, but if Uhuru is the president, he's the president of this country because he beat me squarely. Uhuru will say, I have no problem with somebody else becoming the president because the election process was so clear. If we continue having questions and questions to IBC, we will never see the end of this. Let me tell you, Jeff, if we want to move this country forward, it is high time we have a transparent referee that says these are the rules. Let me tell you, the politicians in this country spend more money than they will ever get in 5 or 10 years in parliament. The question is, how are they going to recoup the money? Remember, return on investment theory. You do not put your money where you won't get it. But they know the salary will not be enough. So why are they running for it? Because, oh, there is CDF and I can scoop about 10% or 20% out of it. Or I can pay my investment through corruption. Until we realize that IBC has rules that if you buy a voter, you go to jail. And for your information, this entire time people were buying voters, you didn't even hear one person that was held accountable for buying a voter. There were a lot of violence in many places. In fact, there were malpractices in the nomination through both sides of the divide. You know, people are crying foul even in Jubilee. I meet some MPs who've been left and said, but they rigged me out. That is in Jubilee. And you find some guys in ODM who says, I will not support those guys. They rigged me out. And so the question is, IBC that is supposed to be impartial, quite independent, it's supposed to enforce some laws. If you buy a voter, we have our ways of investigating this, and you go to jail. When we continue buying voters, that is the problem that this Muthuma was alluding to, that Wanjiku is bought cheaply, and then once he's bought cheaply, the guy spends 5 years to recoup his investment from corruption, and he can't do development. Absolutely. We need to start having free and fair election in this country. But besides that, even the watchdogs need to know that if you bribe somebody because you want a vote, you go to jail. Yeah. But because that is not happening, we are going to continue having this in a very long time. We must have a transparent discussion, whether in government or outside government, because the elected leaders are for the people, and the people are supposed to make the decision devoid of being influenced overtly or covertly.
Absolutely.
Gabriel,
real quick.
Just to add actually from what you said, you remember the plastic ban one worked actually very well. The smoking ban as well. I mean, you can't see now anybody.
Nobody smokes.
That just gives credence. So I love the cigar. That gives credence, Jeff, to the fact that it's not that we don't have a strong penal code. It's not that we cannot make laws.
Right.
People just don't follow them because they can get away with it. Simple and plain. When we talk about electoral reforms, I was among the few people who are asking, why don't we just go full throttle to ensure that we have radical changes in our electoral process, that we don't get to where we are again just after an election? And will it become a game where once you lose, you go out, try to change laws so that they can play according to your desires? Or can we get out, make rules once and for all, inject them in our constitution like we had done, and ensure these are the rules? You're defeated, fair and square, does it. Yeah. But the credibility of that process, Jeff, does not start and end with IBC. I think that's something we've gotten wrong.
It begins with you and me.
Me and you.
Yes.
You say, you know what? As a norm, a social norm, I cannot go and bungle an election. I cannot try and vote twice. I cannot go out there and actually go and meet somebody who wants to vote and tell them, even on the exercise itself, if you don't want this candidate, put X and put right on this other one. It starts with a social responsibility by me saying, I am going to help somebody so that they can do the right thing. And whoever gets elected is elected through a fair and a very credible process. So Absolutely. I think it starts with me
Absolutely.
and you.
Gentlemen,
the fact that we keep firing at IBC, I think it is wrong.
It's 5 minutes past the hour. Gentlemen, it's been a great conversation. Michael Araprono says, the twosome duo are making my morning hot as I go to sleep after a midnight shift. 16 Till I Die says, beautiful conversation today. Very informative. Our politicians need to be accountable for good and bad. You guys rock. And Isaac says, I just love the show. The guys are making sense. I do hope we'll be be having these kinds of talks that make sense. Gentlemen.
Wow. Sammy Uncle Sam says,
Yes.
you guys have taken over, loving the conversation.
Well done, gentlemen.
Amen.
Well
Thank you
done.
very much.
Gabriel Muthuma, Michael Agwanda, thank you so much, gentlemen. Let's do this again sometime.
We'll be here tomorrow.
no
Because
problem.
I always say, let's keep talking, because the moment we stop talking is the moment we start fighting.
That's it.
Salamu from your daughter, Betty. Says, that's shout out to my papa. I'm so proud of you.
Man, I don't have a daughter somewhere. Nobody. Hey, girlfriend, please. I'm in studio.
Join the world of Viusasa Entertainment and enjoy the videos you love. SMS the word Viusasa to 40984. Choose your preferred package plan. Select the amount for your chosen package plan, then click Next. Viusasa, connecting you to the videos you love.
The Hot Breakfast with Jeff and Jelano.